They told me to wait, just until the holidays passed, just until the snow melted, just until it was easier. I waited in basements, behind closed doors, at the edge of family photos. But this year, on Thanksgiving, when my daughter said, "You'll eat after everyone else," I picked up the roast and walked out. That's when everything changed. I wasn't planning to move in with anyone, not after 37 years in my own house, and 10 since Walter passed. But when I missed that last step coming in from the garage and cracked 2 ribs, things shifted. The recovery was slow, and the cold didn't help. That's when Amber said it. "Just for the holidays, Mom. Until the weather's better, you'll be closer to the kids." It'll be nice, I told myself. It made sense. She had the space, and the stairs in my house were starting to feel taller every year. So I packed up a few bags, just what I'd need for a couple of months, and moved into her basement. Technically finished, but you could still smell the drywall under the paint. She'd laid out a small area rug and brought down an extra blanket and said with a bright, hurried smile, "It's cozy, right? You'll sleep like a rock." That first week, I tried to stay out of their way. Woke up early, made coffee before anyone else came down, folded the laundry when no one asked. The kids, Logan and Maddie, were polite in that distracted, screen-locked way teenagers are. They said thanks when I made grilled cheese and sorry when they left their backpacks in the hallway. Amber seemed grateful in a distracted way, and Ben, her husband, mostly nodded at me like a neighbor you barely know. But slowly, the air in the house began to feel different. Amber started referring to my room as the space downstairs. Never Mom's room, just space. One morning, I heard her tell Maddie, "Keep your music down. Grandma's under the living room." Not in it, under it, like a mouse. I didn't say anything. Not when they left me off the family calendar. Not when I realized the upstairs thermostat didn't control the basement, and no one thought to give me a space heater. I just doubled up the socks and boiled more tea. By mid-December, I was doing all the grocery shopping. Not because they asked, but because I noticed we were out of things. I made lists, clipped coupons. I thought it was helpful. That's what mothers do. You fill in the cracks. You keep things running smooth. But one Saturday morning, I found a Target receipt on the counter. Amber had picked up laundry detergent, garbage bags, and a few groceries I'd just bought the day before. Same brands, same sizes. She didn't trust I'd gotten it right. Then there were the little comments. "You didn't have to make all that, Mom. The kids aren't really into meatloaf anymore." Or, "Could you not use the main bathroom for your showers? The water pressure's weird after." And once, this one stuck with me. "You don't have to keep doing so much. It's okay to just be," as if I were auditioning for a spot in my own family. Logan asked me one night why I didn't have a window. "It's not fair," he said. "Even the laundry room has one." I told him I didn't need one, that I liked the quiet. But he frowned and said, "You always look tired." One evening, after a long day of errands, I came home to find Amber in the kitchen with Ben. She was speaking low, but I heard it, that clipped tone she uses when she thinks I'm not around. She's not a burden, it's a lot. Having another adult in the house, it changes the rhythm. Ben didn't respond, just chewed his pasta and stared at his phone. Later that night, I opened my checkbook and my little notebook, the one I keep in my purse. I started jotting down dates, grocery runs, rides to school, laundry days, meals I'd made. Not because I wanted credit, but because I needed to remember I wasn't just taking up space, I was holding it up. The next day, I overheard something that felt different. Amber was on the phone. I was walking up from the basement, slow, careful with my left foot. I stopped when I heard her say, "She's not gonna fight it. We just need to position it right. If it's framed like a household contribution, no, she doesn't read the fine print. She trusts me." My hand was on the railing. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. That sentence hit somewhere below the ribs that had only just healed. That night, I didn't sleep. The basement was too quiet, too dark. I lay there with my cardigan still buttoned, the notebook open beside me. I stared at the ceiling and thought it was supposed to be temporary, just for the holidays. But holidays end, and some things don't go back in the box. The next morning, I made waffles, not the frozen kind, real ones from scratch, with buttermilk and a little cinnamon. It wasn't an apology, though it probably looked like one. Amber came downstairs halfway through, still in leggings and a sports bra, earbuds blinking, and said, "Smells amazing, Mom," like it was a commercial break. Ben didn't say anything at all, just took his plate and wandered off to his laptop. I didn't expect thanks, not really, but I noticed when Logan muttered, "We have syrup," and no one answered him. After breakfast, I opened the mail, sorting through the usual mess: catalogs, credit card offers, a few Medicare updates addressed to me. That's when I noticed one of the envelopes was already torn. Inside was a balance update from my SNAP benefits card. Down almost $50 more than I expected. I double-checked my notebook. I hadn't used it that week. Later that day, I asked Amber about it, gently. "Did you use my EBT for the last Costco run? I just want to make sure it wasn't some weird system error." She didn't even look up from her laptop. "Well, yeah, I thought we agreed. We're all one household now, right? I mean, you eat what we eat." Then a pause. "It's not a big deal, Mom." I swallowed it. I always do. I just nodded and went to wipe down the counter, again, even though I'd just done it an hour earlier. That evening, she handed me a form with a sticky note on top. "Hey, can you just sign this real quick? It's from Dr. Wilkes's office. They said it'll help with getting your records transferred over." I read the top of the form. It was pre-filled with my name, date of birth, Medicare ID. I asked what it was for exactly. "It's just a release form," she said breezily, flipping sweet potatoes on a baking sheet. "So I can help with appointments and stuff. You don't want to miss something important, right?" I didn't sign it, not right away. I folded it in half and put it in my notebook. Her mouth tightened a little, but she didn't say anything. The next day, while she was out running errands, I called Dr. Wilkes's office myself. The receptionist was polite, but surprised. "We didn't send any paperwork," she said. "There's nothing we need signed right now." Her voice stayed flat, but I felt something tighten behind my ribs again. Not pain, not quite, more like clarity. That night, I overheard Amber again. This time in the living room, door cracked open. "I'm not trying to scam her," she said, phone tucked under her chin. "I'm just saying if we can streamline things, I mean, she's living here, we're managing her care, it makes sense." Streamline, that's the word she used. Not include, not support, manage. Like I was a spreadsheet column, It got worse. I found a second form in the kitchen drawer with my signature. Traced, not mine. Access to my Medicare account had been granted. I called the helpline and requested a full activity history. The representative was kind, with that tired kindness people use when they know they've heard the same story before. She said changes had been made 2 weeks ago, right after I moved in. I confronted Amber the next morning, sat her down in the kitchen, hands folded on the table, like a teacher about to hand out detention. You've been using my cards, my information. Without asking, that's not help, that's theft. She didn't get angry. That would have been easier. No, she got disappointed. The kind of disappointment that makes it your fault just for bringing it up. You're being dramatic, she said. This is just logistics. We're a family. Families support each other. Do you think I like doing this? I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Really looked. That afternoon, I walked over to see Marge, my neighbor from the next cul-de-sac. She's in her 70s, sharp as ever. Always smells like cinnamon gum and sarcasm. When I told her what had been happening, she didn't blink. Just said, it starts small, sugar. A grocery run here, a prescription pickup there. The next thing you know, you're a line item on someone else's spreadsheet. I laughed, but it came out hollow. That night, I sat with Maddie at the kitchen table, helping her with homework. She asked me if I missed my old house. I told her, sometimes. Mostly I miss feeling like my things were mine. She chewed the end of her pencil. Mom says it's easier if you just trust her. I didn't respond, just patted her hand and excused myself. Back downstairs, I pulled out the notebook. I wrote one line in the margin. Don't sign anything you didn't ask for. Then I tore the form in half, slowly, quietly, like a woman taking her name back. I woke up early Thanksgiving morning, not because I had to, no one said a word about help or plans, but because I always have. It's muscle memory. The quiet kind that comes from decades of holidays where the stuffing started before sunrise and the oven door swung open more times than the front one. I came up from the basement before anyone else had stirred. The kitchen was spotless, a rare sight, and the turkey, a 14-pounder I'd picked up myself, was still in the fridge untouched. I checked the side dishes I'd prepped the night before: green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes with pecan topping. All lined up like soldiers waiting for orders. I started in silence, no music, no talking, just the rhythm of peeling, mixing, tasting. My back ached before 8 a.m., but I ignored it. That's what you do when something feels like the last thing tethering you to being useful. Amber wandered in just after 10, still in her robe, holding her phone like a life support device. She barely looked up. Oh good, you're already on it. We're aiming to eat around 2. Greg and Lila should be here by then. Greg and Lila, her in-laws, who always brought a pie from Whole Foods and compliments like, "This is quaint." Ben came in next, set out folding chairs, nodded toward me with a half smile. Need help with anything? I said no. I always say no. The kitchen filled with the smell of rosemary and browned butter. I basted the turkey, glazed the carrots, pulled out my mother's gravy boat, and washed it by hand. The kids came and went, asking if there were snacks, if they could use the Xbox. I made cider and kept my hands moving. At one point, I reached into the drawer for the good silver, my mother's set, and it was gone, replaced with the stainless everyday stuff. I found the silver in the garage, still in the velvet-lined case. I didn't ask why, I just took it back out. By 1:30, the table was set, candles lit. Everything looked lovely in that way Pinterest dreams of. I went downstairs to change, nothing fancy, just a navy blouse and earrings I hadn't worn since Walter's memorial. When I came back up, guests had arrived. I could hear laughter and glassware. Someone had poured champagne. In the dining room, Amber was already making a toast. I hovered in the doorway, holding the serving platter with the carved turkey. I waited for her to turn and notice me. She didn't. She said, "And thank you all for coming. We've got an amazing spread, mostly plant-based this year." Someone clapped. I stepped forward, set the turkey down. "There's plenty for everyone," I said, smiling at Lila, who looked confused. Amber turned too fast. "Oh, great. Just set it there, Mom." Then to the room. "We'll start with the guests, then kids, then us." I stood there. "And me?" She blinked. "You can eat after everyone's gone through. There's not a ton of seating and, well, you've been nibbling all day, right?" I hadn't. Not a bite. Not even a sip of cider. A silence fell. Not dramatic, just that odd shift when people realize someone's been forgotten and no one knows how to fix it without making it worse. Ben cleared his throat. Lila suddenly needed to check the pie. Someone's phone buzzed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just picked up the turkey platter, my turkey, the one I paid for and brined overnight, and walked out. Amber called after me. "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" I didn't turn. "Going to eat with someone who remembers I exist." I made it to the end of the driveway before Marge's car pulled up. She leaned out the window, eyes wide. "Are you holding a damn bird?" I climbed in, turkey in my lap. "Yup." And I'm done playing the help in my own family. We drove in silence for a bit, the smell of sage and browned skin fogging the car. Marge said, "You want a drink?" I said, "I want a plate, a fork, and someone to say thank you." She nodded. I got all three. And just like that, Thanksgiving turned into a rescue mission. I watched Amber's house disappear in the side mirror, warm lights and fake laughter shrinking into the distance. I didn't feel sad. Not yet. That would come later. Right then, all I felt was hungry. Marge's dining table wasn't fancy, an old oak thing with a crack, running straight through the middle and mismatched chairs. But that night, it felt more like home than Amber's ever had. She found a bottle of something red and strong, pulled out her emergency linen napkins, and we sat there like two women who'd survived something silent and heavy. I carved the turkey myself, made a plate, and ate every bite. No one asked if it was gluten-free. No one told me to wait my turn. After dinner, we split a piece of lemon cake she'd had in the freezer since Easter. I laughed too hard when she couldn't cut it and had to stab it with a butter knife. She said, "If this is what freedom tastes like, I'll take it frozen." That night, I slept in her guest room, an actual room, with a window and a door that closed without creaking. The next morning, I called my landlord from the porch and asked if the unit I'd been renting out was still empty. It was. He seemed surprised. I didn't explain. I was back in my own place by the weekend, just a few miles from Amber's house, but it felt like another state entirely. I unpacked my 2 suitcases and hung up the blue blouse that still smelled like Thanksgiving and resolve. I opened my filing cabinet, found every document with my name on it, and started making a list: Medicare, Social Security, my bank, the pension office. One by one, I called each of them. Turns out, Amber had listed herself as an authorized representative on more than just my Medicare. My bank confirmed she'd recently requested a duplicate card for ease of access. I canceled it. I revoked everything, changed every password, froze the accounts temporarily, just in case. When Amber called, I let it ring. Her message came an hour later, brittle and thin. "You could have at least told us you were leaving. The kids are confused. We're trying to explain, but you're making it really hard." There was a second voicemail after that. "We never meant to hurt you. We were just trying to help. If you'd stayed calm, we could have figured something out." I didn't respond, but I saved both voicemails. I figured I might need the receipts. The next day, the doorbell rang. It was Logan and Maddie, standing there with a Tupperware container and downcast eyes. "Mom made lasagna," Logan said. "We thought you might want some." I let them in. The kitchen still smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something older, the way the house had before I left it. Maddie sat at the table, silent, tracing her finger along the edge of a placemat. "Mom's mad," she said. "She says you embarrassed her." I poured them both a glass of juice. "Did she tell you why I left?" They looked at each other. Logan shrugged. "She said you overreacted, that you took the turkey and stormed off." I nodded. "And what do you think?" Maddie looked up. "I think you were standing there with all the food, and nobody even said thank you." We sat like that for a while. Then I walked them back to the porch and told them they could visit any time they wanted, but that I wasn't coming back, not like before. On Monday, I met with a lawyer, not the family attorney Amber had recommended years ago. Someone new, someone who didn't know her tone of voice or Ben's empty smiles. We sat in a small office with beige walls and a humming light fixture. I showed her every form I'd collected, every screenshot, every transaction. She nodded slowly and said, "You've done your homework. We updated my will, removed Amber entirely, made sure my accounts required two-factor authentication. We drafted a revocation of any and all previous financial access agreements." When I hesitated before signing, the lawyer asked, "You sure you want to go through with this?" I said, "I'm not just someone's mother anymore. I'm a person with a name." That evening, I baked a pie, not for anyone else, just because I felt like making something that ended sweet. I put on the old jazz station Walter used to love and lit a candle just for me. Later that week, a young woman from Meals on Wheels came by. Her name was Alyssa, with freckles and an awkward smile, maybe 22. She looked around the kitchen and said, "Wow, you've really got it all set up here." I smiled. "Takes time to remember what you're worth." She blinked like she didn't quite get it, but she stayed for tea, and when she left, I sent her off with half the pie. "You're sweet," she said. "No," I corrected. "I'm smart." But sometimes I bake. I should have known she wouldn't let it lie. Amber's never been one to leave anything unresolved, unless, of course, it was my needs. It started 3 days after the will update. A patrol car rolled up outside my house just after noon. I was trimming dead leaves off my potted basil when the knock came. Not loud, not threatening, just official. The officer was young, polite, trying too hard not to seem intrusive. "Ma'am," he said, eyes flicking to the nameplate on the porch, "we received a wellness concern from a family member. Said you might be confused or acting erratically. Something about taking property during a family gathering?" I stared at him, pruning shears still in hand. "You mean the turkey?" He blinked. "Ma'am, I made a turkey." I walked out with it. No threats, no damage. "Just dinner." I stepped aside. "Would you like to come in? I'll show you my spice rack." I even alphabetized it. He gave a tight smile. "No need. This is just a follow-up. You seem entirely competent." "I am, but thank you for confirming what I already knew." He chuckled, just enough to show me he understood. Before leaving, he handed me a card. "Just call if anything escalates." It did. The next day, a long message appeared on Facebook. Amber's post, of course, polished and vague enough to avoid legal trouble, but clear in its intent. "It's hard when someone you love pushes you away," it read. "Especially when you've done everything to help. When they twist your care into control. Sometimes boundaries are necessary, even with family." Especially when mental health is involved, I didn't comment. I didn't need to. Within hours, my inbox was full of messages from old bridge group acquaintances, a few neighbors, even a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. Half were supportive, the rest curious, nosy, and wrapped in that suffocating tone people use when they pretend to care. "Are you okay, Doreen?" "I heard something strange, just wanted to check in." "Is there anything we should know?" "Yes," I wanted to say. "You should know I'm fine. You should also know my daughter is orchestrating a campaign to make me look unstable because I stopped folding her dish towels. Instead, I went to the attorney again. We added an affidavit to the will, spelling out why Amber had been removed. Specific dates, specific behavior. I signed every page. That same afternoon, I opened my mailbox to find a glossy envelope with gold foil edging. A fundraising invitation from the local women's shelter. Funny, I thought. I used to donate every year. Then, for no good reason, I picked up the phone and asked if they needed volunteers. 2 weeks later, I was slicing onions in the shelter's kitchen with a girl named Denise, who called me Miss D and wore glitter eyeliner like armor. I'd never felt more grounded. Then came the final insult. An email from Amber, not to me, but to my bank, marked urgent. She was disputing the revocation of her access to my accounts, claiming I wasn't of sound judgment when I made the changes. The subject line, concern for elder financial stability. I nearly laughed. Instead, I forwarded it to my lawyer. That evening, I dug out the last document I hadn't yet touched, the one Walter and I had drafted 25 years ago. Our funeral preferences. His was simple, military headstone, folded flag. Mine had never been filled in, so I wrote it out by hand. No church, no speeches, no false memories. Just music I like, a simple box, and someone to read the truth. The next day, Alyssa from Meals on Wheels dropped by. She brought soup and a book of poetry. "I was thinking," she said shyly, "maybe you could talk to the group next week." "About money stuff? How to stay independent?" I looked at her, really looked. She was the age Amber had been when she first got her own apartment. Before she learned how to talk in spreadsheets and PR statements. I smiled. I'd love to. I stood at the sink after she left, watching the steam rise from the soup. My own name was finally protected again. My bank, my will, my breath, mine. It had cost me everything I was told I needed to keep. And yet, standing there with a warm bowl and no noise but the tick of my kitchen clock, I had never felt less alone. A year passed, quieter than any before it. Not in the hollow way, not the silence of being ignored, but in the peaceful, uncluttered kind. The kind that comes after a storm you didn't know you were living in. Thanksgiving rolled around again, and this time the only bird I saw was the turkey on my own kitchen counter, seasoned exactly how I like it. Heavy on thyme, light on anything trendy. No vegan side dishes, no almond milk alternatives, no rules about who eats first, just a table, a roast, and whoever had the decency to pull up a chair without expectation. Marge came early, wearing a scarf shaped like a leaf, and hauling a tray of deviled eggs with too much paprika. Denise from the shelter joined us, brought sparkling cider and a pie she'd baked with her new boyfriend, who smiled like a man on his best behavior. Alyssa came too, her first holiday without her family after finally cutting off her father. Figured I'd spend it somewhere honest, she said, setting down a loaf of cornbread like it was a peace offering. There were 7 of us total, not counting the neighbor's dog who wandered in for scraps. The food was imperfect. Someone burned the green beans. We ran out of forks and had to use dessert spoons. And still, it was the most I'd laughed in months. Amber didn't reach out that day. No messages, no calls, no social media posts. I'd blocked her months ago after she tried to tag me in a photo captioned, "Grateful even for the hard lessons." I guess I was the lesson. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. But I knew the loops in her ease. Inside, 3 sentences. I'm sorry you felt the need to leave. I hope one day we can find a way back. The kids miss you. I sat with it for a long time. Not angry, not vindicated, just tired. The way you feel after carrying something far longer than it ever deserved. I didn't respond. Instead, I went to the community center, walked into the room where I'd started teaching a course for older women called Your Money, Your Voice. There were 12 of them now. Gloria, who finally kicked her freeloading nephew out. Sandy, who sold her RV and got a condo with plumbing that worked. And Hilda, who still whispered when she talked about her checking account, as if someone might hear. We sat in a circle, sipping lukewarm coffee, each with a pen and notepad. I started every session the same way. "What do you own?" I asked. They listed things, a car, a couch, a name on a deed. And then I said, "No. I mean, what do you own that no one gets to touch without your permission?" There was always a pause. Then someone would say it. Myself. That was the right answer. At night, I sat in my kitchen, now lit by a lamp I'd bought second-hand, and rewired myself. The window let in the rustling hush of leaves, and sometimes I play 'em into the radio just loud enough to fill the corners. A letter came from Maddie in January, a real one, with stickers on the envelope and handwriting that tried too hard to be neat. "I made stuffing from your recipe. Mom said it tasted like the real thing. I didn't tell her it was yours. I just smiled. I read it twice, then placed it in the drawer with the others. No reply, not yet. Maybe never. Some bridges burn, some rebuild. But some you leave behind, not because they collapsed, but because you realize the land you're standing on is finally enough. That spring, I planted herbs on the windowsill. Basil, rosemary, mint. They took root fast, green and unapologetic. One morning, I sliced a sprig for my tea and looked out the window to see a robin hopping across the lawn. I thought about last Thanksgiving, about the turkey, the table, the door I walked out of and never walked back through. And I smiled, alone and full, finally eating at my own damn table.